Right, hello, my name is Jill Newton. I'm the Safeguarding Lead for ACL Adult Community Learning Essex. Welcome to Developing Safeguarding and Prevent Good Practice in Your Online Classroom. This is one of the sessions that we put together and delivered for HOLEX as part of their Digital ACE training. Short introduction to me. I've been with Adult Community Learning for getting on for 26 years, so a long while. I have been involved in safeguarding since it first started, and I am the safeguarding lead and have been for the last 5 years, gone 5 years actually. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that I can hopefully get the slides up. I'll keep you a minute. Right, so these haven't gone from the beginning, so I will just go back to the beginning of it. So the Digital ACE project, which this was part of, was designed to support providers as they were starting sort of their technological journey online. And this is something most of us had to do quite quickly at the start of COVID and the first lockdown. Some of us had already been doing online delivery, but for a lot of tutors, this was really a new thing and was very difficult to get used to for lots of reasons, not just safeguarding. So the purpose of the session is to gain a better understanding of safeguarding learners in an online learning environment and to know how to do this, to be able to recognise signs and indicators of abuse whilst we're online, to know how to react to certain types of abuse, and particularly focused on certain types that have increased since the start of lockdown, to understand how it's important to embed safeguarding topics in class discussions, and to have a list of rules or guidance that tutors and learners can both use online. So the challenges of online delivery, you might be able to think of more, but these were ones that I identified at the start of putting together this training. So spotting the signs and indicators is really hard. It's not as easy to see what's going on when you're online. You've just got a sea of faces in front of you. It's also not as easy for learners to disclose and report concerns. You can't just stop someone in a corridor anymore and say, can I have a quick word, and go into a classroom. It's a lot harder to do that other than email and, you know, other forms of communication, telephone, which isn't quite so easy to do in the situation at the time. It might be hard to observe abuse that is going on if cameras and people's mics aren't on. If cameras aren't on, if mics aren't on, you can't hear what's going on in the background, you can't see what's happening. There's a number of reasons why people will not want to have their camera on, depending on their environment. There may be children playing in the background or something if they're homeschooling. There may be noises, distractions, but if you can't see all this, then it's difficult to pick up potential abuse. You also don't know who's present in the room. There could be somebody who is responsible for domestic abuse in the background. Staff safety needs to be considered in a different context. Taking someone into a breakout room in a way is very similar to having a tutorial with them on your own in a classroom. And there's huge concerns about technical issues taking over. So if the tutor's worrying about whether all the learners have managed to get online, whether somebody's mic's working, all sorts of things like that, whether their own equipment is working properly, then those concerns can take over from everything else. So one of the methods we use to give our staff some training on potential safeguarding concerns that we might spot online was to put together a video of a virtual classroom. This obviously is fictional, but we use some staff to identify particular concerns that might be something that could be spotted online. And we put this out as a challenge for our tutors. We sent out the link to the video in one newsletter, and then a month later we put in the results. We asked them to identify what concerns they could see in this video, and also what they would do about it. So I'm going to try and share the video with you. Hopefully I will be able to do this. And I've got to remember to click on sound, otherwise you're not going to be able to hear it. Okay. So I should be able to see that soon. Okay, so we'll just play this. It's only a few minutes long.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all today?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Not a very nice day outside, is it? It's a very rainy day. So we're going to crack on today. And the topic for today's session is going to be looking at different types of employment. Part-time, full-time, voluntary work. And then we're going to look at the different work sectors that are available. Kerry, you're right there, Kerry. Why are you still in bed?
I'm staying in bed because it's cold and I haven't been topping up my gas meter.
Oh, right. Oh, okay then. Right. Okay. So moving on to our job sectors. Some of the sectors.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm always doing that. I'm really sorry.
All right, Jill, don't worry. It's not a problem. So the work sectors we're going to cover are construction, hospitality and catering, health and social care, horticulture, beauty and logistics.
Well, actually, I don't know why I'm on this course. I don't need to work. The guy I met online buys me everything I want, all for that for small favours.
Oh, right. Well, then you're very lucky, aren't you, Claudia?
Yeah.
I can't cope with this. I can't see any future anyway.
Wait. Yeah.
Tracy.
Stop being useless.
Tracy.
Go and clean my football boots.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
All right there, Joe. Ready? Okay for me to continue? Okay, so I'm going to start putting you into pairs and then we're going to move into breakout rooms. So let's see who I'm going to pair up. Ian, can you go with Jill?
What? You mean the one that keeps saying sorry all the time? I ain't working with her, man. She never speaks, does she? She never talks. All she says is sorry all the time. It's all right on my nerves.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, there she goes. Like, it's just sorry. I ain't working with her.
All right. Okay. Sorry. So, okay, Jill. So, okay, that's not going to work. So, Ian, instead, I'll pair you up with Joe.
Nah, what? No, I ain't. She's having a giraffe in here. Have you seen her after lunch? Like, oh, it's not nice. It's all fruit or with those paper clips. Like, I ain't having that.
Okay. So it's not going to work like this. I think what I'll do is I will pair you up. And I'll put you into the separate breakout rooms. So you'll see it pop up on your screen. And if you can just go into the breakout rooms. And whilst we're in there, I want you to talk about the different work sectors and the skills required for that area. Okay, so you're going to go into your breakout rooms now.
Right, okay. Hopefully you can still hear me. So I'll just get the PowerPoint back up again and right, we'll go through what you might have spotted. Right, so obviously there was a lot going on in that video. We had different scenarios. Jo was the lady with a bruise on her face. She was looking anxiously to her right and there was a man's voice aggressively telling her that she needed to clean his boots while she was in the middle of her classroom. That could have been domestic abuse. So it would have been a good idea to try and get hold of her after the session and just speak to her, but you have to do this in a very sensitive way because he may still be present. Jill was the lady who kept saying sorry. She was apologising a lot when she dropped something. She was obviously suffering from anxiety and low self-esteem. When another learner behaved in a disrespectful way, she still apologised, which was totally unnecessary. It could just have been low self-esteem. It could have been anxiety, but apologising constantly can also be a sign of psychological abuse. So she's also somebody we might have liked to have checked up on. Terry was the lady who was sitting on the end of her bed and said it was too cold. Could have been that that was just that she didn't want to put her heating on. She hadn't popped it up, but she didn't say why. She said she hadn't got enough money. That could have been somebody preventing her from having the heating on. It's a possibility that it's financial abuse, but it also could have been that she just got financial difficulties. Claudia was the young lady who was saying that she didn't know why she was doing the course. She was doing favours for someone she's met online. That could potentially be grooming or could already be exploitation. Favours for what? So what was she giving in return? Was it dealing with drugs or was it sexual favours? Who knows? That needed looking into as well. Tracy was the lady that appeared very quickly, said she couldn't cope. She closed her laptop. Possible indications of depression, anxiety, could just be the anxiety about course content. It could be an indication of suicidal thoughts and intent though, so needs looking into urgently. Ian was the one who behaved in a very bullying manner, but he was also drinking, obviously, in the classroom. This is something we wouldn't accept, a learner bringing in a bag full of bottles of cider. So do we accept it when it's online? Do we ask him to leave while he's drinking? We'd certainly need to pull him up on his behaviour and the lack of respect that he was showing for everyone else. So all the safeguarding concerns that are there need following up and quite promptly, using your own organisation's process for reporting and for recording. But they all need following through and looking into whether it's something that the tutor does themselves initially, but definitely passing on the concerns to the safeguarding team. So if we look quickly at domestic abuse, we know that this has risen during COVID. It's something that is really difficult when someone is online because you don't know whether they're on their own or not. So these are the signs that could be present. It could be abusive behaviour, as in the video. It could be somebody yelling in the background. It could be a child that is upset. It could be domestic abuse that needs reporting to the children's safeguarding team. All these sort of things. Noticing that the learner seems very fearful of their partner or family member. This is something that we wouldn't always pick up on in a centre. Feeling concerned that the learner is unable to speak with you alone or in detail is a big issue, and it is having a way of being able to speak to them when we know that it's safe. So if you notice that their partner's always present, could just mean that they're in a flat or a small house and there isn't anywhere for them to go, or it could be something more than that. And the obvious physical abuse, including bruises and scratches. We personally had a concern raised about a young apprentice who was isolating with her boyfriend, and she had a bruise on her face, and her manager noticed and contacted her. She said that the bruise was due to falling in the middle of the night and hitting her face on the dressing table, but we didn't really believe her, and it turned out she disclosed to us that he had punched her in the face, and we were able to get other professionals involved and get her back with her mum and safe again. So this is a signal for help that you could use So it is purely putting your palm up to the camera, tucking your thumb in and bringing your fingers down to track your thumb. You could teach this to your learners as an option. You could say that we know that domestic abuse is increased since COVID, and this could be a sign that they could use if they wanted to alert you to the fact that they needed urgent help. This was thought up by the Canadian Women's Foundation when the social isolation measures came in, and they realised it was much more difficult for those that are at risk of domestic abuse to reach out safely to people and ask for help. So it's a simple one-handed sign that can indicate that somebody needs to check in with them in a safe way. There are other ways that you may have already within your systems. We have an online safeguarding form for referrals that learners can access themselves. They're all told where this is, so they can complete one of these, and it almost bypasses their tutor if they can't get to speak to them, and will come straight to us in an email so that we can look into it. Okay, another one is suicide risks. So these are some of the signs that there could be. Learners could actually say that they want to die or kill themselves. They could write about it in their work. They could be leaving a session without reason or not responding to messages. They could not be coping maybe with any problems they have. There could be lots of reasons for some of these things, but it's worth being aware that somebody who is really anxious, really depressed can start thinking about suicide. They could indicate that they feel worthless, and people could be better off without them. So if you know one of your learners and you are alerted by one of these signs, you need to try and speak to them separately. You need to ask how they are. If they indicate that anything is concerning, they're not coping with life or something like this, ask them directly, have they had thoughts about suicide? They may say, oh, no, I'm not thinking of that. I'm just really depressed. But if the answer's yes, they have thought about suicide, then a good thing to do is to ask them if they have a plan. If they have, then the situation is far more serious. Lots of people have thoughts about suicide, but once people start putting together a plan, it indicates that there is a likelihood of carrying it through. So that needs to be an immediate referral to your designated safeguarding officer. If they were to leave suddenly after you identifying these concerns and you had immediate concerns for their safety, then you should ring 999. So I had to include prevent because we're told that online radicalisation has increased. This now includes conspiracy theories, online, more use of online networking, and social media has a lot to do with this. But the referrals to prevent have dropped. This is something that is worrying, and again, it's not easy to identify it. It's reaching larger numbers of people in a larger wider geographical area. There's less effort needed by the perpetrators. So targets are individuals who can be easily led towards terrorist ideologies because of their experiences and their state of mind or their upbringing. So don't forget your prevent training that you will have had, and be aware of this. If there's anything that you see that is concerning, then go to your designated officers. So what do your learners know about safeguarding? What information are you giving them at the start of the course? Do they have a way to raise concerns, as we've talked about? I talked about the online form that we have. So if they're not able to speak to you, what else could they do? Could they email you? Do you ask for and record learners' welfare details at the start of the course? Is this information all available to you? We give our learners, all our learners, a welfare form or access to it at the start of every course. They have an option as to whether they complete it. If they consider themselves vulnerable, have a health issue, or suffer from mental health problems, then they can complete this information and submit it, and it comes directly to the designated safeguarding team, who are able to upload this form onto our MIS system, and we have a way of, so that this shows on the tutor's online register. So they are able to access the information and see it before start of the course. It's a really good way of finding out a little bit about your learners, so you know who are actually vulnerable. How would your learners respond if they were asked a question by Ofsted? Or would they know what to do if they had a concern? Because this isn't just about Ofsted, but it's obviously something that happens. They speak to learners. So the sorts of questions they might ask them is, do they feel safe? This is obviously, and it would also apply to apprentices. So do they feel safe while they're on their provider's premises when they're at work? They might ask them about the policy of wearing ID badges. This is more applicable when you're back in centres and not online, but it could still be asked if an apprentice was attending a workplace still. Do you know who to go to if you have to report a safeguarding concern? They might be asked about extremism and radicalisation. They might be asked whether these are discussed within progress reviews and tutorials. They might want to know how they discuss feeling safe at work and in their personal lives. What sort of barriers might be apparent in a colleague who you suspect of holding extremist views? What sort of behaviours, sorry I said barriers there, might be apparent in a colleague who you suspect of holding extremist views? So some of our safeguarding and prevent training we need to pass on to our learners and embed that in our teaching. It's really important that they are able to understand this. And what is the provider's IT policy on cyberbullying and accessing inappropriate websites? So this is something that our learners all need to know about. So don't miss opportunities for bringing it into discussions. If possible, make it relevant to the subject. If it isn't, don't avoid doing it. There may be naturally occurring opportunities to discuss safeguarding, depending on the classes you teach. So remind learners about it at the beginning of each session. Even though they're online, it's just as important. They need to know that. The keeping themselves safe online content, they need to have information, they need to have handy so that they know what they've got to do to keep themselves online and what they shouldn't be doing. And include an awareness of extremism and radicalisation, including letting them know what local issues are. Okay, so I've got an example of what we were calling, we're now calling it Working Safely Online. We were calling it Netiquette, which we give to our learners. So this is the sort of thing that they shouldn't be doing. It goes into behaviours such as being on time for your course, even though it's online, having all your materials handy, trying to be away from pets and children and music playing, being able to contribute and putting yourself in a position where you can. Talks about security, not sharing your passwords, changing your passwords, about email addresses. If you're using a webcam, this is really important, and there's a big debate about whether people should have cameras on or not. But as I've already mentioned, we can't see what's going on if people don't. Also, I think it's something like 70 to 90% of communication is body language and facial expressions. So it's really hard to communicate with people and teach them when they're just a round circle with initials on it. There are things you can do. Teams allows you to blur your background or to have a background on if you're using it. And whatever platform you're on, there are usually some alternatives to just having your room in the background in view. So this goes on to talk about sort of behaviour, be respectful of others, be careful with personal information, dressing appropriately. So people, although they're at home, shouldn't be doing online courses in their onesie so that everyone can see it sitting on their bed. You know, it really needs to be appropriate. They don't need to dress up, but beware of using reply all. That's not so much in training, but sometimes not everyone needs to see a message. Stay on topic, remember to listen, not talk over each other. This is really hard when you're online. Mute your speaker when you're not talking so people can't hear all those background noises and there's no interference. Treat everyone with respect, don't use offensive language. Sometimes when people are working online, they behave in a different way to how they would if they were in a face-to-face situation. It seems to be that it's easier to offend someone and not get any repercussions if you're at a distance, you're working remotely. Couple of reminders there about not putting anything or saying anything that you wouldn't say to someone in a person. Think about how you'll feel. And a reminder about safeguarding. So just a reminder about recording and reporting any concerns. It still needs to be done. Be curious. If you've got any worries that things aren't okay, get back to the learner. Just check in with them. So I just wanted to check that you were okay. Is there anything you want to talk to me about? You can use breakout rooms if possible. It's not always easy. If you had someone supporting you, such as an LSA, you could ask them to do that. Just have a quiet chat with someone, or ask them perhaps to hang back after the session's finished, or ask them if you can phone them later. Use the chat to put things in. If you're questioning learners when you contact them, use closed questions so that if someone's in the background, they can just answer yes or no. Report using your organisation's reporting process. If the learner's in an obvious immediate danger, then ring 999 yourself. If you've got a learner referral system for online, make sure they all know how to access it. So I think that's just about reached the end of the training. Thank you for joining me and keep safe.